Where does a lawyer begin on something like this? We begin by looking at the evidence. That's where, as a profession, we say we like to start. We're above politics, aren't we? We're independent of politics. We just look at the evidence. So let's begin with that. And first of all, the evidence of what is happening, or not what is happening, what we are doing to the world around us. Linda has covered some of that. I imagine most of you are familiar with that. It's not just what the science is telling us about the critical tipping points. We're seeing it, aren't we? We see it all around the world. It's not just what was happening in Pakistan or the famine in the Horn of Africa or Afghanistan. We've seen villages decimated in Germany, in France, in Luxembourg, floods in the UK. You'd have to be blind not to see it. You'd have to choose not to see it. There's the evidence of what our governments and the fossil fuel companies have known. They knew this was happening in the 50s and the 60s, and they launched deliberate campaigns to conceal that from us. We've got that. And then there's the evidence of what is happening now, what humans are doing now after all those 27 rounds of the conference of the parties and all the lawyers and all the backslapping and all the congratulations. Global emissions of carbon dioxide are just rising as if none of those meetings had ever happened. So that's the basic snapshot of the evidence. And accepting what Linda has said about needing to reframe laws and to get over that false separation between humanity and our environment, let's just look at that evidence through the lens of our ordinary legal systems that we're familiar with. If people do something knowing it's going to cause irreversible, immeasurable harm to others, they do that knowingly and they carry on doing it, under what legal system is that? That is a crime. It's a civil breach of civil law. We've got plenty of mechanisms within our legal systems, even our own Western traditions of law, ideas of duty of care, trust, human rights obligations, which includes positive obligations to take practical and effective measures to safeguard life. What is the first principle of international law? That one state doesn't permit activity to take place on its territory that harms the territory of another state. That is existing law. Are those laws being upheld? Well, I'm going to talk from the perspective of the UK, which is what I'm best able to talk about. You often hear UK politicians say, well, we're just a tiny part of the problem in the UK, just 1% of emissions. It's India and China. Well, actually, the City of London supports 15% of global emissions around the world as a financial centre. That is a vast amount for a relatively small country. Law Students for Climate Accountability have just revealed that the top law firms in London have supported £1.5 trillion worth of fossil fuel transactions since 2018. And the Energy Charter Treaty, not many people have heard about that in the UK. £100 billion have been paid to fossil fuel companies in compensation by our governments for their inadequate climate policies that have harmed those companies' profits. The UK ignores the scientific advice, grants new oil and gas licenses when all the scientists say you cannot do that. And we are locking up young people, putting them in prison. One day in September last year, 50 climate people standing up for all of us were sent to prison just for their protests. What about those fossil fuel directors? Are any of them in prison? No.